Good evening. Welcome to the October 3rd Troy City Council meeting. This evening we're pleased to have with us Pastor Dan Lewis from the Troy Christian Chapel to provide an invocation, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Pastor Lewis. Welcome.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in our world we face a multitude of options and opportunities, challenges, and our own preferences. And in the midst of all of these, we pray for your will. We pray not in order to bend you to our will, but we pray in order that our will may become yours and that our thoughts may be after your thoughts. We ask for guidance for this council and for our city in times that are challenging for all of us. We know that you care, and we thank you for this. In the name of Christ our Lord, amen.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Bittner?
Mayor Schilling?
Here.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Here.
Councilmember Fleming?
Here.
Councilmember Hollerlach?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Here.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Here.
Councilmember Slater?
Here.
Quorum present. This evening we begin with under special presentations, the city manager's presentation of the performance dashboard required by the state of Michigan. And we have it up on the screen, and we have Mr. Zerlag approaching the special microphone.
Thank you for allowing us to do this. Governor Snyder, as you know, has an economic vitality incentive program. One of the requirements of this program is to have in order to receive a portion of our state shared revenue that's statutorily allocated, is the development of a performance dashboard. And this is already on our website. If anyone can go to our homepage on this and look at performance dashboard, it'll come up. Many staff members worked on this. I'd like to thank them formally at this time. We had Rob Bittner, our programmer webmaster, Justin Breyer, an intern in my office, Monica Ireland, the assistant to the city manager, Chief Gary Mayer, Mark Miller, our director of economic and community development, Chief Nelson, our fire chief, Gert Periskeven, our IT director, and Cynthia Stewart, our community affairs director, who's going to help navigate through this. And if we could, the Measuring Troy's performance essentially has an outline with various categories. We far exceeded the transparency requirements of the state of Michigan in doing this and try to simplify it as well. So when you look at the key that we have, green means good, regardless of which way the arrow is pointing, and red means there's room for improvement or it's not doing too good. Blue essentially is something that's not too good or not too bad. It's status quo. Okay, so if we can take a look at economic strength. The categories on the left side are unemployment, taxable value, per capita income, office and industrial building rates, and condition of roads. The stat that you see for unemployment statistics, and there's also a narrative for each box, and that is that our unemployment rate is high, but the good news is that it's tracking downward. And so there's a green arrow that's pointing down because that's a good thing. Next, Cindy, is per capita income. I'm not a big fan of anything that's on a per capita basis. It's not indicative of the population that we serve. Per capita generally is based on the number of people that sleep in the town. Don't take into consideration the number of folks that work here or visit. But again, this is a state requirement or guideline, and we want it to be the same as other municipalities that use this. Our per capita income is tracking upward, and that's good news. The line of the arrow, of course, is green, and the reason that we have a dotted line from 2000 to 2007 is that we didn't have specific points for each individual year, but we did have the 2000 point and the 2007 point The solid line, we do have individual data for. Cindy, I think I skipped one. Let's go to taxable value. Taxable value is going down in Troy. That's one reason that we had to essentially have a massive restructuring effort in the city. And thanks to your help with adopting the 3-year budget and being on the same page where we're taking the community, we're going to get through this recession. You know, all things end. This recession is going to end as well, and we'll be postured to once again be a signature city offering premier service delivery venues. Next is office and industrial buildings occupancy rates, and a red arrow tracking down. The occupancy rates are going down, and that's something that we'd like to work on to turn around. Later on in the meeting, Mark Miller and myself are going to talk about our efforts in the community and economic development sleeve of our organization. We have some good news there. Condition of roads, that's the blue icon I was talking about, and this tracks city road conditions, not county road conditions, and we have a fair to good objective. We keep that throughout the next several years, so it's neither good nor bad. We decided to have a level of service on roads, and we're going to have funding to keep it that way. Next is health and education, another requirement or recommendation by the state, and this is actually a community benchmark. It talks about the percentage of communities age 25 or greater with a bachelor's degree or higher, and Troy is almost 55%. The Michigan average is about 25%, and U.S. is a little bit higher than that. Next slide also talks about the percent of residents age 25 with a graduate or professional degree. We have college readiness in terms of benchmarks with ATC scores, and Troy is much higher than the state of Michigan. Miles of sidewalks is another recommendation from the state, and we have 500 miles of sidewalks. Every year we also add more sidewalks with our sidewalk improvement program. Next is the value of government. Bond rating, it's about the same, but it's a very high rating, and so we had a green lateral arrow. Debt service fund. You'll notice that it's almost zero for the city of Troy's debt service fund per capita, and that's essentially what we owe essentially on our bond issues, and we're about $44 on a per capita basis. The state of Michigan is about $800, and the federal government is close to $1,400. The next slide is OPEB, which stands for other post-employment benefits. Thank you, Cindy. And we have to indicate the percent that is funded, and you can see we're close to 100% funded for those health care benefits that go beyond employment with the city and other post-employment benefits. We have essentially an actuarial valuation every 2 years. The last one was 2008. The actuaries are working right now on the 2010 valuation. We're confident it'll be just as high or higher in terms of what is funded for that benefit for our retirees. What essentially helped in that regard is that all new hires do not receive any retiree health care. Let's go to quality of life. Oh, I didn't do, okay, sorry. Keep me straight, Cindy.
You didn't do unassigned fund balance.
Right, it's under value of government. This is my favorite slide. And I also want to thank the council for this, because it's really a function of council policies as well as council endorsing what we have done for best practices. And I want to thank all the employees as well, because it's greatly a function of employee concessions that were generated from virtually every employee in the city of Troy. We had forecast a fund balance of maybe $9.8 million. We're going to be around $13 million for unassigned fund balance because of the best practices that we have, the ERIP program, and employee concessions. And a municipality really can't have a good handle on what is going on if they were to adopt a early retirement incentive program, unless that's done in tandem with the 3-year budget, because the budget denotes who's going to stay and who's not going to stay over that specific time frame. If you just kick the can down the road every year, you'll have no clue who's going to go and who's going to stay. We were not like that. I think we're going to be one of very few municipalities that have a positive fund balance for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2011. Okay, quality of life, population growth. In actuality, our population had increased based on the last census, but the state wants us to track individuals age 25 to 34. That's the young folks that we're trying to retain in Michigan. We're getting very tired of having the state and parents educate their children in Michigan universities to have other states get the benefit of their degrees. My own daughter falls in that category. Recreation programs, again, is a red arrow, which means it's negative, but our program offerings are down. The positive to that fact is that there is no longer a subsidy for those recreation programs. Okay, city parks, we left that pretty much status quo. We have a large number of acreage per residence. We do have undeveloped property that we purchased a while back and did not have the funding to develop those parks. So eventually, when things improve and we assign priorities on how to spend excess funding, we'll take a look at our city parks that are undeveloped. Curbside recycling is also lateral, but it can't get any better. We have 100% curbside recycling for single-family homes and condominiums. As you know, we have a library with a dedicated millage, and that's a very positive sign. Our golf courses are also tracking upward in terms of the maintenance of the course and how they are managed now. Next, we have public safety. Notice all the indications are green. They're all good. Let's go to violent crimes. They're going down. Good point, though, Cindy. Violent crimes, of course, are the murder, rape, robbery, assault, and I think it's car theft as well. Is that correct, Dane? Do you know?
That's 4 of the 7.
Okay. There's also property crimes that are going down, traffic crashes. Take a look at property saved from fire. Very, very high percentage. Fire department staffing is next. And this is a slide that indicates the number of career and volunteer individuals that we have in our fire department. And you can see the red line essentially shows our full-time personnel in the fire department, and the blue line shows our volunteers. We strive for 180 volunteers in our department. And the average firefighters per structure fire, the NFPA has a recommended response number of 15, and since 2002, whenever we have a structure fire, there's always more than 15 that arrive at the scene. And this, again, is with the fire department that's volunteer, about $4 million. Comparable municipalities are about maybe $12, $16 million. One thing the government, the state did not ask for that we threw in there are partnerships, both public-public partnerships and public-private partnerships. And we have a listing of our partnerships for public-public that indicates, fleet maintenance where we in-service other municipalities. We have other municipalities use our gun range. We consolidated police dispatch and lockup with Clawson. Animal control services have been consolidated or regionalized to Oakland County. We're a participant of SACRA, the South Oakland County Resource Recovery Authority, and we belong to the Intergovernmental Cable Communications Authority. In terms of public-private partnerships, we have privatized the golf course operations and management thereof with Billy Casper Golf. Building department operations in total to Safe Build Company. Half of our engineering department has been replaced with consultants. Our planning department contracts part of their services with private consultants. The Troy Nature Society and Troy Historical Society are now essentially on their own in terms of staffing. We have Tringali Sanitation. I think we've had Tringali since before Troy was a municipality. and an outside cleaning company, as well as the Troy Racquet Club and Recreation Department for tennis courts. And then at a glance, this just takes a look at where we are in each one of the categories for economic strength, health, and education. We do have areas that we need improvements, obviously, and we will work on those areas. But I think overall, this is a very good performance dashboard, especially if you take a look at performance in terms of a comparative analysis with the municipalities. That, I think, is the key. I could have a car that could go from 0 to 97 miles an hour in a quarter mile in 15 seconds, and we wouldn't know if that was fast or slow unless it was compared to other cars in the same class. So I think a dashboard like this will give all of us an opportunity to take a look at what we do, what our performance is, and then compare that to other municipalities. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Zerling.
Yes.
I see I have a couple questions. Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
I'll go to your car metaphor. We can have a car that has the potential to do all of that, Manager Zerlag, but unless we receive that revenue sharing to pour in the gas and fuel it, we won't be going as far as we could anyhow. Do you agree with that?
I agree that we should get our fair share of state shared revenue, absolutely.
And now that we have this, what's the next process?
There's actually 3 steps to the Economic Vitality Incentive Program. The dashboard was the first step. It was due last week. We met that deadline. The next step is that we have to take a look at, and I'll get there, one second, consolidation efforts. And I'm hoping that consolidation efforts don't really mean consolidation with other municipalities, but I would take what we've done with Billy Casper Golf and Safe Build Construction Company as consolidating with the private sector. My preference would be to consolidate with the public sector, but sometimes it's more expedient and sometimes it's more cost efficient to partner with the private sector. That's also a form of consolidation. And we're confident that the state will agree with us. Also, regionalization should also be part or a subset of consolidation. The third component is still, I think, a little wishy-washy out there or nebulous in terms of specifics, but we have to do something with our defined benefit program in terms of what is called the multiplier, but I'll be talking to our labor attorney about that to get the specifics. And whatever that result is, we need to advise that the vast majority of our existing employees are on defined contribution, about 80% of them. So whatever is required would be required for a smaller amount than other cities in terms of that area. So that's the third step.
Any other questions? Look forward to seeing ours online and people seeing it, and plus seeing other communities. Mr. Miller?
Madam Mayor, and just to add 2 things which are included on the dash that Mr. Zerlag did mention is the PAFR, which is a popular accounting financial report, and also the narrative of best practices. They're available. And the PAFR is a required element of the dashboard by the state.
Okay.
And there's also a 3-year budget. Thank you.
Yeah, those are 3 important things.
Yeah, essentially measuring Troy's performance, we have all those categories up there.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And those things have been on our website all along. Okay, very good. Next, we have a special presentation, and I'm going to call upon Linda Shears. IAC has a special presentation, explanation. And even though I asked them if we could possibly have the chair up here,
You want us to bring them up?
I know, I was kidding.
Okay.
I think more people can see it down there because it is going to a special place where everyone will be able to see it. And so Linda's going to explain about that.
Thank you.
You have company tonight,
I have
too.
company, yes.
You have
Thank you.
backup.
Thank you, Mayor Schilling, for inviting us to come here tonight. We come in total humor because we brought with us someone very special. First of all, I am Linda Shears, and I chair the Image and Arts Council of Troy. This is Zabel Balian, owner of the Balian Arts Center on Rochester Road. And this is Charlene Brown, who is our secretary and media manager and just does wonders for the Arts Council. And Charlene's husband, James Brown, couldn't be with us tonight, but he is also one of the artists on this. And this lovely lady right here is Tallulah of Troy. I must explain her to you. Tallulah started out as a brown headless chair. She was proposed to us. Well, actually, Mayor Pro Tem Mary Kerwin sent me an email. She said, the Michigan Municipal League, and then Councilwoman Robin Beltramini has something to do with this too, they have 8 to 12 chairs they don't want to use anymore, and we would like to do a repurposing or recycling project, and different municipalities in Michigan were offered the chairs. So, of course, we took one, and she said, would you like to do something with it? And we said, yes. So the minute I saw that, I saw the body, I thought it just needs a head. So we grabbed it, and Isabella and I did most of the painting on it, and it was a total project of joy and love. We laughed every minute of the way, and we put all that energy into that chair, and we're actually, it's going to the Michigan Municipal League's conference in Grand Rapids this week, and it will sit in the lobby with her fellow chair members, and people can bid on it. It will benefit the MML, and is my understanding correct, some of this might go for teaching art to children. So knowing that, this had to be fun, this had to be whimsical, and being that she's a recycled chair, she is also 99%, we used recycled product on her. We either wore it or Halloween or otherwise, or we bought it from resale shops. And even the paint, the Image and Arts Council has done murals in Troy elementary schools, and the one we did in the spring, Sherwin-Williams donated very bright colors to us, so we used what was left in the can to paint her. So this was tons of fun, and we are going to bid on her. Hopefully she can come back to Troy and sit in Isabel's gallery, and maybe she can take trips around Troy and bring love and joy to everybody who sees her, because everyone who saw her here tonight couldn't help but smile. And this is what art does to a community. It gives us a sense of place, a sense of joy, and I hope she enjoys her trip. Thank you.
Thank you. What a great project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have no carryover items, but we do have public hearing, and it is on the CDBG Community Development Block Grant 2012 application and public hearing. And who is presenting? Is someone going to present this for staff?
I think Cindy will.
Okay. And you know, but if you come to this mic, then we can be looking at the chair at the same time. Of course, it's competition, right? Thank you, Mrs. Stewart.
I got our numbers from Oakland County. As you can see, every year they've been going down. And this year, for the home chore program, they did tell us that our funds were being cut in half. We used to get 30%, now we're getting 15%. But we do still have some money in our home chore program from 2008, 9, 10, 11, I believe. So we're okay for a little while. I'm not sure, they have not said if this is going to go away altogether in the future. And they also took away administration, as you can see, for 2012. So this is what we are recommending, to put the full 15% in the home chore program, and then flood drain improvements.
Council have any questions for Mrs. Stewart about this? Thank you. We have a resolution in front of us, Council. I guess I should open the public hearing first. Open the public hearing. Anyone want to speak on this item, which is the CDBG funds for 2012? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return to the council table now for a resolution.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Beltrame.
Whereas Oakland County is preparing an annual action plan to meet application requirements for the Community Development Block Grant CDBG program and other community planning and development CPD programs, And whereas Oakland County has requested CDBG eligible projects from participating communities for inclusion in the action plan, and whereas the City of Troy has duly advertised and conducted a public hearing on October 3rd, 2011, for the purpose of receiving public comments regarding the proposed use of this PY, shouldn't it be FY? 2012 Community Development Block Grant Fund, CDBG, in the approximate amount of $143,525, and whereas the City of Troy found that the following projects meet the federal objectives of the CDBG program and are prioritized by the community as high priority need. Account number 17216-732170, Public Services Yard Services in the amount of $21,528, and account number 17217-730744, Flood Drain Improvements in the amount of $121,997. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Troy CDBG application is hereby authorized to be submitted to Oakland County for inclusion in Oakland County's annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute all documents, agreements, and contracts which shall result from this application to Oakland County.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Howlack, that we approve the resolution as printed in red. Discussion of the motion?
Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin.
Just a reminder that to be eligible, these are restricted funds, and that some seniors, I know this is a very worthwhile program, the Home Chore Program, helps seniors who have an annual income, which merits that kind of support. And of course, we need flood drain improvements in certain areas, and this qualifies under that distinction as well.
Further discussion of the motion? The vote, Mrs. Bittner?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Howlack?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we go to public comment, and I remind folks that this is on items that are on the agenda or not on the agenda. And the time limit is the 5 minutes per person, and Mrs. Stewart will start the clock when the individual gets up to speak. And I will call on folks that have signed up to speak on the items, so in the order that they signed up. The first person to speak is Roger Walters. So, Mr. Walters, if you will come forward, please.
Sure. My favorite place of the day. In front of the people who like to spend all the money.
Feel free to adjust the microphone for yourself.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was watching this is about the Boyd Street issue again, back to that one more time. Hopefully this might probably be the last time he sets this up here a little bit better for me. The one officer, when I was rereading, when I was watching this back again, since I only got 5 minutes, I got to go quick. I guess it's the sergeant or lieutenant, the one in the back corner behind me.
The chief?
Yeah, the chief. When he made the statement last week, 2 weeks ago, we were up here about the buses, the GPSs on the buses were actual. He said that they said that that they were accurate. Well, at that point in time, before I called Mr. and Mrs. Fleming to my home and Miss Milton to my home, at that time it was on the 16th approximately. I wrote everything down, so I have it all in this book. I can give you the time and dates exactly of everything, including the police officers that came to the house and asked me not to park on the street, which is a public place to park. I can park there if I feel like parking there. Any one of you could park there if you choose to. I talked to Terry Oparka of the CNG News Times. She didn't understand that the Troy School District was swelling enormously. Well, that's kind of funny. And when I told her on the phone that, she had no clue anything about the Boyd Street outcry from all the mailboxes being hit. And the officer in the back tells me, about the GPSs, that was prior to them keeping track of it, because Mr. Fleming and his wife and Miss Milton were residents or invited people to my home who watched this go on prior to me, to many of the Boyd Street residents that were complaining about the high rate of speed. Now we have a resident, she's down, I believe it's 1102 Boyd. She has a sign in front of her house. Gentleman in the back knows, he's seen it. Now she actually called me, and of course she signed one of the requests for improvements. To make it all cut and dry, look, we need to shut down it's not a street, so I don't know what do you want to call it. A path through the woods, a little piece of pavement. I got a letter from Senator Papa George. Would you like to read it, what he said to me?
Well,
I'd like to have you read it, because...
When you finish, if you'll pass it to the clerk...
Sure, I'll read it. It's from the senator. It's our district, so when you get a moment, I'd like to have you read it. It's from him. And it has to pertain exactly to what I've been talking about, shutting that little piece of property down. Actually, when we talk about money in the city, about spending money and stuff, we could actually do a lot better than just spending all kinds of money. Every time I look in this paper, they spent $143,000 on this, $8.5 million on that. You want to take more property, now you want to take more property, undeveloped property, and you want to try to shove more money up someplace or wherever. It just doesn't make any sense, you know, that the people in the city of Troy, the people who work here, are spending so much of the taxpayers' money. It's just, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, it is ridiculous. Why don't we solve some things first by you put 300 new kids into a school it's been the same street since I've been a little boy. Has any of you people here born in 1957 that lived on Heartland or Boyd Street? Anybody here since 1950? I have. And my parents still live there. But it's funny, you put all these kids into a school, but you never accommodated the room for it. Any new road, any sidewalks, that was the big issue. That's why I keep coming up here, and I keep specifically saying, Mr. Fleming, is because his wife and him are the first people who actually took hold of this and actually went farther than most people have, that I can actually say. He's done a wonderful job. I mean, but we still have a problem. Problem is, we still have massive cars coming down Boyd Street, coming off of Daly. We still have inappropriate road, drive, I don't know what you call it, path. Two vehicles can't pass at the same time. So I can't figure out, it's right here, Mr. Papa George, everybody will get a chance to read it. What I can't figure out is, even the chief of police, I even spoke with him, because he lives at the very end of our street. He agreed that shutting it down, building a new, using the money from it, have the students from the school district build a school, sell the property. The city of Troy could get a lot of money off of that property there. So if we could just use that money, we're not putting it up Raintree, okay? We're not, because I know it's where you live, this Raintree. We spoke about it once before. I know my time is up, dear.
Walters.
Okay.
And if you'll pass the letter to the clerk,
sure, I will.
And we'll get it back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
The object is to shut down the part of Boyd Street there. And I'm going to continue to come back up here till forever, until it's shut down. Who would like this?
Give it to the clerk, please. The next person who would like to speak is Mr. Gordon Shepke. Thank you. Mr. Shepke? Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I was kind of worked up when I came here tonight, but seeing the beautiful sunset on some of the colors and everything out there, and the glories of the Lord's creations, it just kind of calmed me down a little bit. What I'm up here to speak about, we have elections coming up, and it's coming up close. And what I'm really upset about is when legally placed signage is being vandalized and ripped up, and it shows a lot of disrespect. The United States of America is a nation of laws. And when people disrespect these laws, it makes us less of a free country. I've noticed a lot of changes since I was born during the war years to what we have right now in our society is degraded, and it's degrading at a faster rate. And it really upsets me. A lot of effort goes into the placing of for signs to be placed legally on property. And when there seems to be a little bit of selective, in my opinion, vandalism of this signage, it's upsetting to me because I have to run back on these locations and constantly restaple signs, rebend wires, or replace signs, and I think that this should stop because we're a better city than this. This kind of behavior has got to be controlled. I don't know what the penalties are for vandalism of signage or illegal removal of signage, and I'd like to know that tonight. But I think that there's something that's got to be done. Whether we have enthusiastic supporters on one side or the other, it doesn't make any difference. We have to get this under control, and we have to start acting like grown-ups. And this kind of behavior should not be tolerated in the city of Troy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepke. Next, Mr. Peters, you signed up to speak next. Richard Peters.
Evening, Council, Mayor, folks of Troy. I got a couple of things here tonight. First, I want to comment on this cutting of these welfare rolls over the weekend from the state of Michigan. I kind of think basically that was a cowardly act by gutless people, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I think it's just a tragedy, state-sponsored, But okay, Beach Road. I believe they're going to. Are they going to pave Beach Road? Now, to me, that's an outrage, to be honest about it. As a resident being here 60 years, we have some few rustic places back, and I think Beach Road remaining a gravel road would have restored some of that, and I think it was just, one of those things, I guess, that happens. Okay, I think we want Troy where the quality of life means something. Looks like he took a lot of my, where the streets are safe, the roads are paved, drainage systems work, parks and cemeteries remain open, and all the services, garbage, etc. people want. And I think we want an education system that is second to none. I don't believe that the slash and burn style that drives away talent, creates low morale, along with a rigid ideology, is going to help this modern, relatively new city. I also believe that Troy can be a model not only for Michigan, but for the rest of the nation. I further believe that this city can have a community-based middle-class value of honesty, integrity, openness, and a willingness to open itself up to new and challenging ideas. Finally, I want to put a plug for the bridge and the President's Jobs Program based on taxing on stock transactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Mr. Savage is next. James Savage. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm going back a little in my history. About 50 years ago, while I was living in Canada, I became actively involved in an election campaign. It was the only time. The candidate that I supported for Prime Minister, he did not win. It was 30 years later, around 1990-91, a year-long nationwide survey was held involving Canadians from all walks of life, film stars, hockey players, politicians, etc., for the person that the public thought was the greatest Canadian of all times, and millions of people voted. The second place winner was Terry Fox, a young man who wheelchaired from coast to coast across Canada for charity. The winner was Tommy— the man that I had supported 30 years earlier. And it felt very good to know that my small effort was on the right side of history. You're probably wondering where this is going. The term for this council is drawing to a close. And how will history judge its performance? Not too favorably, I think. But I do believe history will judge Councilman Martin Howlack as the most popular councilperson in Troy. Now, this is not my personal opinion. It is based on the number of Troy voters who have chosen Mr. Howlack over other candidates. You can check the voting records. It's there in numbers, and they don't lie. And these are the voting records ever since Mr. Howlack came on the scene, and I think that was about 11 years ago. Not only has he consistently received the most votes at election time, he and the voters were on the same page on issues such as Parkland, Convention Center, I-75 interchange, etc., etc. And when some members of this council thought he should be censured for speaking his mind, his public support was overwhelming. Many times after attending a council meeting, I have gone home disgusted and feel that it's a waste of time trying to fight City Hall. And then I would think of Mr. Howlack and the many times that he has stood alone for the people of Troy. And usually that would bring me back. I remember about 9 years ago when our street had an infrastructure problem. We got nowhere at City Hall, so we brought the problem to council. Within a couple of days, Mr. Howlack and Mr. Eisenbacher came out, saw that it was a City Hall problem, and we had it solved. Mr. Howlack has consistently voted against tax abatements for corporations, and he is right. It may be legally and politically okay to do this, but it is morally wrong to give tax breaks to multi-million-dollar corporations and not give the same break to our local businessmen. At this time, I want to thank Mr. Howlack for his many years of dedicated to the service of our city and to the people of Troy, and he will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to sign up to speak is Deborah DeBacker. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to say that I also had a sign problem this weekend in our subdivision. We lost 21 signs between 11 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon on Sunday. Tonight I'm here to speak to you about transparency and following the law in hopes that the people of Troy will see what kind of outsiders and insiders supporting the last millage increase are still around supporting and running as for candidates. Y'all remember the Burning Books campaign signs and the TV commercials, and that campaign was called Safeguarding American Families and was run by Democrat strategist Tom Ball. It was later admitted by Trust and other Vote Yes campaigns that they were in league with those nasty sign makers that tried to blame the No campaign for the Burning Books signs. Well, now we'll see some more nasty tactics to avoid who was really paying for those signs and a circumvention of campaign finance law. Here we have the campaign finance statement of the Burning Books sign campaign, and they were filed extremely late. And the only donor to that campaign is the local office of the International Advertising Agency of Leo Burnett. All that is reported is $75,000 of in-kind donation for advertising. Nothing about what it was spent on, about who gave the money. In a normal campaign statement for a ballot question committee, you would have people who give donations, and you would list who you paid for signs, who you paid for the bumper stickers, who you paid for the printing costs. All that is not known. All it is a $75,000 in-kind contribution from the Leo Burnett Advertising Agency. Really, why would an international company care about a library millage in Troy? I just cannot believe this campaign statement. Although legal to do this, it is questionable. Why is this all that is showing? There's no way to know who really funded the Burning Books campaign or the commercials or any other things spent by the Safeguarding American Families. This is circumvention of the law. $75,000 is a huge donation for one donor in any election, let alone the city of Troy. It is twice what the other pro-tax side campaigns and the no side spent combined together, and all in secret as to what it was spent on. Then on top of that, they didn't file their pre-election statement on time, and they still have not paid their fine for not filing on time. And in fact, why I'm here today, because just today the Oakland County Clerk's Office, with approval from the Attorney General's office, mailed them a letter saying that they still have not paid their fine. If they don't do so soon, they will be turned over to the County Treasurer's office for delinquency. So I just find this amazing, just with all that $75 that they can't pay their $500 fine, or is this another flagrant dismissal of our laws, an unethical practice of hiding what they were really doing? With trust in league with this group, do you really trust the candidates who are endorsed by this trust group? Do you really want to elect to city council a person, the man who started Trust, Mr. Yashinsky, the president of Oakland County Normal, an organization whose goal is to legalize all marijuana use? He admits so in his blog and would rather say he'd rather see our teens smoking pot than in jail. Is that our choice in this city? No, I don't know what this city has come to see all these things happening. And the other thing I like to say is back to when you're talking about your drain problem, if I have a few minutes, what you have in your drains, I see them at South Boulevard in Coolidge, I've seen them all over, is you have an invasive species listed by invasive species in the state of Michigan called Phragmites. Phragmites. And you can find out how to get rid of them at phragmites.org. I work with a group at where my cottage is to get rid of those, and it will tell you exactly what you have to spray. You probably have to do it before October 15th this year, or you won't get rid of them because their roots go down 4 to 10 feet deep. And even if you get a little bit left, you're going to have a huge growth in a couple years. So you really have to kill them with chemical and not just dig them out.
Thank you, Mrs. DeBacker. That concludes those that signed up to speak. And so we'll have response to public comment. And my response on complaint about the filing of documents, they're filed with the county, not with the city, and the avenue for redress of ills that also goes with the county or with the state. Is that so, Mrs. Bloom? Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, Mayor.
It's not a city matter.
That is correct. It is not a city matter. All of that filing is done with the Oakland County Clerk's Office, and all of the enforcement is also done by the Oakland County Clerk's Office.
Okay. And the second part of that is with the invasive species that are drains. We have some expert people in our Parks Department that I'm sure are on top of that, but it wouldn't hurt to pass on the information. Probably they're already working on that kind of thing, because I know that's one of the things that we've tried to do through all the years that I've lived in Troy, which has been 46 years, is to keep the drains working properly. Right, Mr. Zerlag?
That's correct. I'll just advise Mr. Rich Knack, our Director of Public Works. He's now in charge of Parks Department as well.
Okay, that's good. Because, we do want to do the best job that we can with that. Did anybody else have any comment from Councilman Fleming?
Yes, Mayor. A couple of people Mr. Shepke alluded to the problem with the campaign signs being missing, stolen, damaged, whatever. and it was alluded to also by Ms. DeBacker. And I'm just wondering what the law is, what the penalty is if someone's caught stealing signs or damaging signs. What is the penalty?
Mrs. Bloom?
Mayor, I can probably address that. If it's a malicious destruction of property or if it's a potentially trespassing claim, if the person is caught, those are misdemeanors. The maximum penalties are up to 90 days in jail, up to 2 years of probation, and up to $500 in fines.
Thank
you. If signs are placed that are not in a legal manner, in other words, in right-of-way or without the permission of the owner, they may be removed by the city staff, as we've done for years, but they wouldn't do that without verifying the fact that it is not in the correct location. Is that also correct, Mrs. Bloom?
That is correct, Mayor. And the trespassing and all of the, those charges, malicious destruction of property, would have to be for improper, properly placed signs that were removed. And again, it's case-by-case basis.
Right. I did have some signs removed from my property that were placed legally, but I don't know if they were removed by a candidate that wanted to use it elsewhere, because I had several. I also had some on my porch, but I didn't turn it in or anything because there was no actual destruction. I did not see anything, so I don't know what happened. But I know in every election we have something happen with signs, and we never quite know unless somebody would actually see somebody actually doing it. Then we would have verification. Anyone else? Councilwoman Beltrami?
I think it's important to note that Mr. Shepke and I don't agree very often, but we absolutely agree on this. It is uncivil, and it is far beneath what is good for Troy and good in Troy. And it's not a secret. Some of those signs are mine. I've lost them like everybody else. And I have instructed my supporters to leave other people's signs alone unless they are the owner of the property or are the broker of the property and those signs were placed illegally. And I would encourage every candidate to recheck with their sign minions to make sure that that is clear with everyone, because it is a behavior that is beneath the city. Thank you.
Anybody else on response to public comment? Seeing none, it's from council members. And yes, Mr. Miller?
Madam Mayor, there was a comment stating that Beach Road was gravel.
Oh, yes.
And it is an existing asphalt road, which is utilizing a new technique to pulverize the existing asphalt and then inject a fluid into that to create a base and then asphalt on top of that. I just wanted to clarify that beach is not gravel.
Okay, let's go on then. There are no postponed items. Under regular business, we have some boards and committee nominations that we asked to come forward. And so folks will get their, council members will get their lists. I'll begin with the mayoral nominations. And first is Downtown Development Authority. There are two reappointments, folks that have requested reappointments, and that is Ernest Reschke for the term expiring September 30th, 2014, and Douglas Schroeder for the term expiring September 30th, 2014. And then a new nomination for a DDA position, because we had Mr. Kennis move out of town, and he indicated to me today, he hasn't sent his letter, but he did tell me on the phone. And so I would like to nominate for that position Ward Randall. The position is for a in-district position, and Mr. Randall is an attorney at Dickerson Wright, and would be an asset to the Downtown Development Board. He has agreed to do that, and we'll send in the proper paperwork. Under Economic Development Corporation, Mr. Charles Salgat has requested reappointment, and so I will place his name in. There are, and the other one is Mr. Miller, correct? Mark Miller? Mr. Miller, shall I put your name down for the one to go to 2017? Okay. Sure. So, Mr. Charles Salgat for the term expiring April 30th, 2016, and Mr. Mark Miller for the term expiring April 30th, 2017. And moved by the chair. Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by the, who was the second?
Either one. Doesn't matter.
I'm going back and forth here. Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini for those nominations.
Mayor?
Excuse me. Discussion, Councilman Howard?
Yes, I have deep concerns about reappointing anybody to the Downtown Development Authority. The track record over the last few years of that board has been abysmal. We have an organization that has debt that's been issued, and instead of putting money aside for a rainy day to make sure that that debt will be properly covered and therefore not burden the rest of the city, the county, or the state, they instead spent over $2 million on an unnecessary project at Rochester and Big Beaver under the auspices of beautification and entryways. And I think that's it. Anybody who's affiliated with that does not deserve to be renominated or reappointed to that board. So I will be voting against the nomination this week, and in 2 weeks against the appointment.
Further discussion of the appointments, reappointments? Yes, Councilman Fleming?
Mayor, I note that you're appointing Ward Randall. I'm sure he's a very qualified individual, but we have a list of interested applicants that have resumes going back for years, and he's not on that list. I'm just wondering why we're not appointing someone who, applied earlier.
It must be, for this particular position, it must be somebody who's in the district, and some of these folks are not in the district. Mrs. Knight, who is on there, her husband already serves on the board, and some of these people are also on other boards, and some of them have moved out of the area, are no longer available for positions. I know from before, for example, Mr. Joseph Vasilo, because of a job change, Mr. Spillers is no longer working within the district, and some of these others on here, so that is why.
So none of these are still in the district that are left, because we have Paul Beck, James Campbell, Barbara Chambers, Rosemary.
Some of them are not, the rules for the DDA are that a certain number of members of the board must work within the district, and a certain number must be at large in the city. Mm-hmm. And when you fill a position, when someone leaves in that position, we usually fill it with an in-district one so that we have that equal balance as we go forward. There may be positions that would come up in the following year that could be where some of those people could be appointed, but it remains to be seen. That was the reasoning why.
Yeah. Madam Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Councilman Fleming?
Yes, the William Kennis that you're actually appointing.
No, William Kennis is leaving.
He's leaving because he's moved, so let me finish. And Ward Randall's the one you're appointed.
Yes.
Was Mr. Kennis an in-district? Because
Yes.
it doesn't show that on this list. Was that an error?
I inquired of Mr. Kennis today, and I inquired of the paperwork that we had listed on his business address.
In-district.
In district.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Hamadak?
I wasn't aware that he was still in district. It's my understanding that he had been working in Livonia for the past few years. Was that the case? And if so, why hasn't this been addressed earlier?
His address on his resume was for the LEAP marketing, and the address on Big Beaver at the last resume that we had. His home address had changed, and then he told me on the phone today that, because the phone number that I received for him, that they're now living up in the Traverse City area. Okay, any other discussion on these nominations? If not, the vote, Mrs. Bittner. This is just for the nominations. Then we'll vote on the positions next at the next meeting.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
No.
Councilmember Howlack?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. And next we'll go to City Council nominations. And we had some reappointments and some new appointments there. So I'll call on Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin at this point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we had many who requested reappointment, and we do appreciate the appointees we make. During this past year, it's been more than a year since we started looking at the streamlining of committees for their patience with the reappointments. So let's start with the Animal Control Appeal Board. Patrick Carolyn requests reappointment to September 30th, 2013, and Jane Sager requests reappointment to September 30th, 2014. If you look on your list of current members, Al Petrulis is a current member, but I noted on his application that he was very interested in traffic. When we come to the end, then it would be a suggestion that we move him from animal control and place him on traffic, which was his priority on the application. He's agreed with that. So we need a couple more, and there were no applications on file. So we do have a couple names of people who volunteered and have submitted applications. Gretchen Waters and Steve Toth to serve till September 30th, 2014. Charter revision. Shirley Canosa requests reappointment to September 30th, 2013. Mark Solomon and Cynthia Wilshire request reappointment to April 30th, 2014. Bob Burke is a new applicant, and he would serve until April 30th, 2014. For the Election Commission, reappoint David Anderson and Timothy Dewan. It's just until January 2012. The new council then can make the appointments at that time. Liquor Advisory Board.
What about Historic District? We're going in alphabetical order. Next would be Historic District Commission. Did we miss that?
I have missed Historic District. I have Liquor Advisory next. Sorry.
Okay.
I have Liquor Advisory, and Patrick Hall requests reappointment to January 31st, 2013. W. Stan Godlowski and Dan Ukranik request reappointment to January 31st, 2014. If we could also include students. We have 2 student applications on file. Unju Sherlink for until October 2012. Jesse Pappas until October 2012. I have Municipal Building Authority and Victor request reappointment. Park and Recreation, I was wondering if we were going to change the name to Recreation. I just wondered, we changed the other things to Recreation?
I think we should.
Okay.
The division's now bifurcated.
Okay, so perhaps it just could be done editorially to the Recreation Board?
Ordinance?
Okay.
Ordinance? Do we have an ordinance change we need to make?
We have to change ordinance wording then too, Mrs. Blum?
Yes, Mayor, it's the Parks and Recreation Board. It's referred to in the ordinance, so that is something that we have not done, and that is something that can be brought forward at a later time, but we don't have it at this time.
Thank you. Good point. So on the Recreation Board, it's changed a bit. We no longer have representatives from seniors and Troy Days. So requesting reappointment to 2013, Kathleen Fijis, Todd Gazzetti, and then to 2014, Megan Kovacs, Jan Zikakis, and Jeff Stewart. Jeff Stewart will now replace Tom Krent, who has moved on to Planning Commission. And I think it should be noted, unless already on here, that the Troy School Board designated rep is Gary Hoff, and his term should be extended to July 30th, 2012.
And we received a letter with regard to that from the school district.
Personnel Board, Ann Comiskey requests reappointment to 2014. Traffic Committee, Richard Kilmer and Peter Zingfendler request reappointment to January 31st, 2014. And Al, as mentioned earlier, will replace Jan Ho, who resigned, and he will serve until 2014. For ZBA, Alan Neal and Dave Lambert request reappointment to April 30th, 2014.
You didn't have Liquor Committee on your list?
I did do liquor.
Oh, I'm sorry, Historic District Commission.
I didn't do Historic District, or at least I don't have a note about it.
It was on that list that I had. Then I looked at names on the weekend.
I might have, just an error, let me take a look, if anything comes to me.
Kent Voigt requested reappointment.
You're right.
Brian Waddles has moved. I don't think he lives here anymore. And that
did Barb change?
Sabaya Jahal, there's no answer at either the work or the home number. Barbara Chamber, I don't know if you contacted that person or not.
No, I wasn't able to reach Barb Chambers.
Do you want to put those?
Well, I can bring them forward. They would be voted on by the next council, but I will. I'll do my homework for that. I'm sorry I missed that.
But we already had Kent Voigt.
Kent Voigt can come forward.
Yes, and he requested reappointment.
Already on something.
Are you moving the resolution, Councilwoman Kerwin, and then we'll need a second?
Well, are we clear on Kent Voigt and to the years that he will go? Another 3 years? For historic?
2013.
Okay.
2013.
Question, Madam Mayor, before this is
Yes, question, Councilman Beltrami?
No, that's why I want to do it now before it's seconded. Was there a reason why you changed the student terms? Student terms typically expire in July.
Right.
And for the two students that you recommended for the Liquor Advisory Committee, you ran their terms until the end of October.
They are juniors, and so they'll be around for another cycle. I thought they might be able to do it during the summer.
That's fine, but I would quite honestly, sooner see them reappointed and have the cycle remain as it is, so that it's consistent on all boards that the students expire in July.
Okay, this is the first time I've had a student appointment, so I certainly welcome that. You would like it to expire August then, August 1st? Is that what you're saying?
July 31st is fine. It's always been July 1st. July 31st suits me just as well, because that way.
And it was set that way because many times we have seniors and then they're graduating and then we put somebody else in there.
Okay,
so you're moving the resolution for all of those?
With that change for the students to July 31st.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we nominate those folks for those boards as listed. Council members, did you have others on there, or did you want to wait to review the list now that those are filled in?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard.
Could you please ask Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, or could you repeat the nominations for Animal Control Appeal Board and Charter Revision Committee?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, I have mine written down, but go ahead.
I have Patrick Carolyn and Jane Sager requested reappointment. The new ones, and Al, as I mentioned, is moving to traffic, so the new ones, Gretchen Waters and Steve Toth. And they just submitted applications today.
For what?
This is animal control.
For what term expiring? It says term expires question mark.
2014.
2014, okay. And for Charter Revision?
Shirley Canoza requested reappointment to April 30th, 2013. Mark Solomon and Cynthia Wilshire to April 30th, 2014. Bob Burke to April 30th, 2014.
Any other questions on any of these nominations? Council members?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard.
Yes, I noticed there were two incumbents who weren't renominated, and so I'd like to place their names in, at least I'd like to nominate them for consideration in 2 weeks, one being Jerry Bloom to the Charter Revision Committee, and the other being Joanne Thompson to the Parks and Recreation Board.
Jerry Bloom. For Charter Revision, and what was the other one?
Joanne Thompson to the Parks and Recreation Board.
And when we have more nominees than spaces, that's when we'll have the names and council members will say the name of who they're voting on. Is that correct, Mrs. Bittner?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, good. Any others? No? Okay. Then the motion is to approve the nominations as suggested with both. Do we have to have another motion now that Councilman Howard has added names in or not?
Since it was moved and seconded, you should
before
have
we had.
You should have an amendment.
So Councilman Howard, will you make a motion then to add those names in, and then we'll have them?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Councilman Fleming, that we add to the nominations list for Charter Revision, Jerry Bloom, and for Parks and Rec, Joanne, wait a minute, get to it here?
Thompson.
Joanne Thompson. Okay, now do we vote on the
amendment first?
Amendment first, okay. On the amendment, then, Mrs. Bittner?
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Amendment passes. And now the main motion?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Howrylak?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, and then at the next meeting, which is October 17th, we'll have a vote on those individuals. Okay, now, next we go to I-4, which is an ordinance revision in accordance with the Troy City Council resolution requesting expunging of boards and committees. We have A and B and C listed, and I remind folks that we had some discussion at the last meeting about doing this, and then at the council referrals section of this meeting, there's a suggestion of how we form a committee that will take over some of the duties that are formed by some of these. And some of the committees we're striking certain chapters because we no longer have those committees. Okay, we have A, B, and C. Does someone want to move those? A is the MIN, Chapter 9, Troy Public Library. B is the resolution to strike Chapter 12 of Historical Commission, and C is the resolution to amend Chapter 13 under Historic Preservation.
I'll move them as written, Madam Mayor. A, B, and C.
Do we have a second?
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve A, B, and C. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Just wanted to comment that the library is too important to not have its own individual committee. And so I'm not in favor, and I haven't been in favor, of terminating the committee. So I will be voting against this resolution.
Could I inquire, Councilman Howard, of the mention of the Troy Library in the council referral under the Lifelong Learning Committee? I think you spoke to that at our last meeting, but you didn't feel that that was going to sufficiently cover what you felt the Troy Library Board does now?
Mayor, I mean, in the ideal world, I would prefer to keep the library board as is and expand it to 7 positions. So that's my preferred option. I can see the writing on the wall, and Plan B is we need to have some committee. So I was simply making comments in light of the circumstances on the city council, but it is my preference to have a 7-member advisory board strictly dedicated to advising the library director and the city council.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to explain that. Thank you. Any other comments on the vote on A, B, and C here? The vote, Mrs. Bittner?
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
No.
Councilmember Howrylak?
No.
Motion passes. Just a minute. Okay, next we go to the consent agenda. Council members, do you have any items you want to have exempted? Hearing none, could we have a resolution to approve all the consent agenda items with this vote?
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman McGinnis?
resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman McGinnis, seconded by Councilman Slater, that we approve all the consent agenda items with this vote as items as printed and presented. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Bittner?
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Councilmember Howrylak?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we go to council referrals, and there was a referral written up by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin based on discussions that we've had last week and previous discussions at lifelong learning. So I'll call on Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin at this time.
I did include in as some backup material. We've talked for a long time about it's called Lifetime Learning Committee. In fact, my colleague, Councilmember Fleming's wife, served on that. And it was their will that the library establish a what I will call a lifelong learning committee and it includes determine community lifetime learning needs, coordinate learning opportunity content, communicate opportunities at the library and to people who live in Troy, ensure that the learning opportunities are provided in user-friendly formats compatible with the skills and resources of users, evaluate and measure the success of efforts, adapt to change as needed, promote the importance of staff development, develop the professional skills of staff. And they included in the Futures Report, now some 5 years ago, that directed City Council, said City Council shall form this committee. So we know we have spent a year streamlining committees and really trying to get out of the way of people who self-select and choose to work in a volunteer capacity to better the community for us. And this really is a self-selecting committee coordinated by the librarian. And again, to fulfill the desire of that committee and just one aspect of the Futures Vision 2020 report, which we received quite a while ago, I would move the following resolution. Whereas Troy Futures Vision 2020 Lifetime Learning Committee recommended the formation of a committee to achieve a preferred future, and whereas the Lifelong Learning Committee would be responsible for determining community lifetime learning needs, coordinating learning opportunity content, and communicating opportunities at the Troy Library to people who live and work in Troy, and whereas the Lifelong Learning Committee would ensure that the library's learning opportunities are provided in user-friendly formats compatible with the skills and resources of users and adapt to change as needed, and whereas the Lifelong Learning Committee would have wide community representation of key community stakeholders who meet as needed with the library director to ensure the realization and utilization of a superior 21st century library. And whereas the Lifelong Learning Committee would include representatives from public and private schools within Troy, colleges and institutions of higher education, PTA, PTO, and boosters, student councils, Troy Chamber of College, IACT, Troy businesses, Troy Library, Recreation, Historic Village and Nature Center, Friends of the Troy Public Library, service clubs, and should include ethnic and age diversity and library and non-library card holders. And whereas the Lifelong Learning Committee's responsibilities include those iterated by the Lifetime Learning Task Force and any other responsibilities deemed important by the library director, and will be a vital conduit for community input. And whereas the committee shall be involved in the strategic planning process and subsequent implementation of the plan, and continue to work with the library director afterward to provide stakeholder input and community involvement. And whereas the library director will report committee recommendations and achievements to council on a quarterly basis, therefore be it resolved that Troy City Council hereby directs staff to establish a lifelong learning committee which fulfills the goals described herein.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini. Discussion of the motion.
Mayor?
Councilman Howarth?
Just a question for Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin. Is it our intent to establish the board this evening, or do we intend for the city manager to bring back a language to establish the board?
I wrote it as the final result, and perhaps Councilmember Howard might advise, but simply to direct staff to establish the Lifelong Learning Committee. The intent with that was that we would no longer be making appointments to this committee, but rather letting people self-select and direct those interested to the library director herself, who can make the arrangements to meet with them, whether at a daytime group for one session or a nighttime group session, whichever works best